say it. So the first motion to approve was, I
That
believe,
was Leah.
and the second was Julie.
Julie,
correct?
thank you.
Thank you. And Ann, we'll probably do a roll call if you don't mind. So this is Eric. I will say aye. Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
Nate,
Aye.
and Leah.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. The next order of business is FY 21014, which is the acceptance of the CARES Act reimbursement. And the one question I do have that Josh did not let on either way is whether or not Tony would be available tonight.
I don't know. I can try to email him real quick. I don't have his cell phone number.
That's okay. Yeah, just if you maybe ping him. But I'm going to pull up this order, which is reimbursement of care funds for $30,703.07. The CARES Act for coronavirus. So I think it's basically a reimbursement for coronavirus costs in the tune of $30,703. I don't know that I would have had a lot of questions for Tony on a gift or a reimbursement anyway, but does anybody have any questions on this?
Do we spend, this is Nathan, do we spend them, we don't know, do we spend this money anywhere else out of the town budget? I mean, I see reimbursements, so I'm assuming that we spent X amount of dollars. The town spent X amount of dollars.
Yeah, I don't know if this is from the state, just, and all towns were given a reimbursement. There's just not a lot here. Nate.
Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah, I
question.
know. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if we spent the money or not. We're still getting money, right? The town's still getting money.
Yep.
Outside the budget.
Yeah, just I don't know.
All right, like you said, I really don't have a lot of problems with this because it is a reimbursement, but just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I think we could approve it, and then we can always ask Tony next meeting to explain it a little bit. We can add it to the agenda. I'll make a note of that, Nate.
We're not spending money, we're getting money, right? So we'll take it and then if,
Yeah, right. That's the way I look at it at the end of the day. So.
Any other questions on this one?
I'll make a motion to accept.
That was Nate Ann. Do I have a second?
Julie
Second,
second.
Susie.
Oh, either one. That's fine.
Eric, aye. Julie?
Aye.
Susie?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
Leah?
Aye.
The next order is FY 21015, which is a transfer order, relocation, roadway drainage and engineering. Pulling this one up as we speak, so bear with me. Looks like it's Cross Street. Here's what I have. Pursuant to Section 6.4 of the Town of Bridgewater Charter, the Town Council of Bridgewater, Massachusetts, and Town Council Assembly vote to appropriate the transfers from the schedule below. Source of funds is Flag Street drainage, $300,000, and they're pulling it over to Cross Street drainage, which is, I guess maybe we had some favorability in Flag Street. I I don't know. This order will reallocate $300,000 of appropriation from the Flag Street to engineer Cross Street. The money will cover the engineering and rebuilding of Cross Street, including drainage, easement, sidewalk, etc., pending any unexpected occurrences. This leaves $200,000 in the Flag Street appropriation, which will cover the engineering for the Flag Street improvements. This includes only design and engineering. It does not cover construction, but will provide us with the plans ready for construction. So, Ann, I'm going to ask you a question that you may or may not know. Is town council waiting on this one? Because I would love a little bit more information from Tony on this one.
Well, I think I can sidestep. I think Tony's coming. I texted the town manager who reached out to him and he said he will be here. So
Okay, perfect.
you'll be able to ask him. But to answer your question, I know that the Budget and Finance Committee did meet and voted to approve these. Here comes Tony right now.
Okay, perfect.
It also says not for action, first reading only on the order. So, but yeah, we should have more information.
I would say that, Susie, just so that you know, that's because that's where it was at when it was referred from the council,
Okay.
that first reading only. So that's why that happens.
So were we really supposed to vote on it at the last meeting when we didn't have a quorum? Is that why it said first reading?
I think we did have a quorum last meeting, Julie. I think unfortunately Josh posted the meeting minutes a little bit too late, so
Okay.
we would have been in violation of the open meeting law.
Got it. Okay.
I do see Tony here, so Tony, perfect timing. Appreciate you joining. We are on FY 21-015, which is the reallocation of $300,000 from the Flag Street drainage project to the Cross Street drainage project. Just want to see if you could give us a little bit of context on that. I'm not real familiar with this one, and we're $300,000.
So what has happened is Flag Street was an immediate need. And what happened was there was some failure of their drainage system. And in fact, there was some sinkholes, if you will, lack of a better term, but there were some really some dangerous areas. They weren't sure how much the engineering was going to cost. They weren't sure what was going to take. So we went for a $500,000 transfer, and the original order was, hey, look, we know that's very conservative, but we could use some of those funds to do some of the work. And then what we found was there's a series of other roads that were in some not as immediate need, but they were in they had some difficult structural issues, and they needed to be looked at. So the town manager went out and began to look for engineering services that he could take advantage of that would help look these particular locations. In one case, in this case, it's what's the street name that this one is referring to? It was like
We're moving from Flag to Cross Street.
Thank you, Cross Street. So Cross Street's been on the radar for quite some time. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to transfer some funds over there so that we can use them immediately to deal with that engineering piece. And again, if we use less than that, there's another, I'm going to pull them all up in the capital plan. I had it open today. Bear with me. Okay. Engineering. Yeah, so there's a number of other areas where they may have to take a look at other than Cross Street. There's engineering that needs to be done. Bedford Street and Grove Street, Central Square and Town Common circulation improvement, engineering, Route 18 Broad Street corridor. So there's a number of projects that we will then begin to look at once we determine what the engineering fees are going to be. So in fact, we've moved it, and a lot of this had to do with COVID, when we had to go to a short capital plan. We had to do our A priorities and our B priorities. So I apologize for not having the whole thing laid out for you, but that was what we had in our series of priorities. Flag Street, because it was immediate. Cross Street was the next one, and there's a few others, but we haven't moved on to them because we're addressing them in the degree of urgency and priority. Again, like we did at Flag Street, we'll be using those funds that we need to make sure we do the engineering there. And if there's remaining funds, we'll either use that for some of the work that needs to get done, or move it to complete some additional engineering on the next priorities. We're trying to lay out what these costs are going to be, because once they're all laid out and the engineering work done, then we can come back and say, this road is going to cost you $2 million to redo. This road is going to cost you $3 million to redo, and we'll be able to have a real clearer picture on what the capital plan looks like. Long-winded way of saying is, it's part of a bigger plan. We just didn't deliver that to you when we were doing our capital plan when the whole COVID took shape. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Sorry, I was
Okay,
on.
we know this is just for design and engineering, and it doesn't cover the construction cost. Any idea what the construction cost piece is going to be?
That's why you do the design and engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we would re-vote on any construction and engineering anyway. So
Yes.
I think the piece that kind of hits home is the fact that this was part of the capital plan to get some engineering done on some of the streets that have major repairs. So I don't have any other questions unless some other folks do.
I have no questions.
I have one question. Julie, how often is there a chance that we would spend this money and not do the project depending on the final cost of the projects? Or
Well,
how often does that happen? Or does it happen or not happen?
we're really at a pivotal point with a lot of the drainage and the roads in the town of Bridgewater. So this is going to be, once it gets put forward, we hope that COVID settles down and sometime next spring we can look at a bigger picture. So it would be the first time you'd be asking for multi-million-dollar appropriations, debt exclusions in order to fund the drainage and the roadway work. So I can't answer your question other to say as that this is work that has to be done. These roads are 20 plus years old. The drainage on a number of them are failing.
All right, I don't deny that. Okay, but when you say a debt exclusion, so something, it would go on the potentially on the April ballot?
No, what's going to happen is the town's going to have a capital plan that's going to show all of this and what the cost would be, and then they would have to determine what they were willing to put on as a debt exclusion.
Okay.
So if we come back with 5 roads that's $15 million, you may choose to stagger over the next X years certain roads for reconstruction.
Maybe prioritize them, is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Any other questions from anybody else? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Leah Wyatt.
Thank you, Leah. Do I have a second?
Second, Nathan.
Okay, I'll do the roll call. Eric, aye. Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
Leah,
Aye.
Nate.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony.
The next order of business is FY 21-017, which is a transfer order for the CPC, a recommendation for Central Square Congressional Church. Tony, this is a $200,000 request, and as opposed to reading it to the team like I did with the last couple, you give us a little bit more history than these write-ups do.
I'll give you a very snippet of information. I think, is there any member of the CPC committee listening in right now? Okay. So there's a portion of the church, which is the steeple, that the CPC feels has historic aspects to it. And under the CPC, they can make recommendations for private projects that they feel have a historical nature. And so that's the context in a very snippet form of I think what they're suggesting. Everything that I've read as it relates to the municipal finance laws, as it relates to expenditures for things of this nature, says if it's deemed a historic location or site, whether it's from the national at the national level or by the local historical commission.
Yep.
In this case, I don't know that it is on the National Register, but if the historical commission deems it, then in fact, it's within my understanding, not an attorney, town council will speak to this in front of the council members, that those funds can be expended for that purpose. There seems to be some restrictions on that they meet certain historical requirements or guidelines and the historical commission's approval. But again, I'll leave that aspect of it to town council. The Budget and Finance Subcommittee has voted in the affirmative to have it put forth to council.
When do they need this approved by? Like, since we don't have someone at the CBDC, maybe we could,
I think they need it approved when you're ready to approve it. I
I don't know
don't,
if there's a deadline.
I mean, they have a meeting that's coming up for efficiency, but I don't know if there's another sense of urgency besides that.
So, Tony, you hit on a couple things, and which lead me to a quick question on what defines a historical building, right? Like, so I think I know the church we're talking about. I think it's right in Central Square there.
Yes.
Right. Well, what I get.
Well, again, it's either you put an application to the federal government to have it
Yep.
designated as a historical landmark, and I don't believe that's the case, or your local historical commission deems that it has a historical context or can be defined historically and how it fit into the community over the last 150 years. And I don't want to get into what that is, but the historical commission would speak to that. And I believe there's a member of the historical commission on the CPC, if I'm not mistaken. So there is no form, I believe, of designation other than what's deemed by your local historical commission in this case. That's much as
And
I know.
I guess what, and not to get into religion at all, but it just throws me for a loop. It's, why this church and not another church, right? Like, so I struggle with that a little bit because I don't know.
I think that could be a fair question.
Now, if I remember correctly, Eric, I thought that the Anglican Church on Main Street, I thought that they got CPC funds.
There was at least one, possibly two. I think when I first came on board, there was some final payments, or it had just been taken care of some stained glass for one of the other churches. So it's not unprecedented.
And Tony, just if you have it, if you don't, not a big deal, but correct me if I'm wrong. When we budget the CPC, it goes in, does it go into one bucket or it goes into the 3 separate buckets to be spent on those 3 items?
There's 3 separate buckets, but then there's also, if there's a surplus of revenue or a surplus on the expenditure side, that goes to undesignated fund balance.
Got it.
Okay, so, and then that money can be used for one of those 3. That surplus can be used in one of those 3. And by law, it's a minimum of 10% of the revenue that you estimate needs to go into those buckets every year.
And then what's the balance of that fund, just if you know it?
Yeah, 1 second.
You know, I do see, this is Nathan, I do see that one member of the CPC committee voted in the negative. Do we know why?
I do not.
Because that's another reason why I guess it'd be nice if we had somebody from that committee.
So as of June 30th, there was open space had a balance of 180,000, historical preservation 356, community housing 147. But a total to other amounts in total to be appropriated, it was still about another, let's call it undesignated or designated for a special purpose, which there, as far as I know, there's no additional special purpose. That was just pulled out of undesignated a few years back. So there's another 1,161,000.
So I'm gonna do 2 quick things, because whether or not it's historical, I think that'll be hashed out through the town council in their meeting. So I'm not gonna get hung up there.
Yeah.
But I do want to put it out to the team on the phone here. You know, I can't imagine we'd be holding things back too long if we took 2 weeks and asked somebody from the CPC to join us and just give us a little bit more information. So either we can vote on it or we can ask for somebody to join the meeting next time we get together, and we can talk about those dates in half a second. But I think those are the 2 options as I see them.
Eric, I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, me too, Eric. It'd be nice if somebody maybe from the church too would be on, but.
And I think what we'll do, hearing that, is I won't table it because I don't want to get into that. But maybe for the next agenda, and if we could, when we get with Josh tomorrow, maybe just ask him if he wouldn't mind inviting somebody from the CPC to attend our next meeting and help us understand this a little bit better, so that we can vote in the right way.
I'll take care of it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. At this point, I am going to pause and just open it for public comment. if there's anybody on the line that has anything to add. Not hearing anything. The one other item I want to make sure we touch on tonight is the discussions of the chair and the vice chair for the FinCom for 2021. I know we've talked about it, but I think I'd like to land on who owns those roles for 2021, and then if anybody else has anything else, I think we can discuss that as well. So the last we left it, I had kind of asked if anybody, I've been in the chair position for a number of years now, and I think it's important that other folks get exposure to running the committee. I am more than happy to vice chair if anybody is willing to chair. I do know, Nate, without putting words in your mouth, you had expressed some interest in that. But without putting you on the spot or anybody else, just want to see if one, you are interested in that. If that were the case, we could make a motion to appoint Nate as the chair go forward, and then we would do the vice chair. But is there anybody else that was interested? I think I want to just make sure I hear from everybody.
I am not at this time. So that's Julie.
I know Susie and Leah, I've spoken with you offline as well, and I don't think either of you were, and I don't believe Kathy was at this time. So Nate, are you still interested?
Yes, I'd still be willing to accept.
Okay.
that position.
Then I will make a motion to appoint Nate as the chair for the FinCom for the 2021. Do I have a second?
Second, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
All those in favor, and I will start. Eric, aye. Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
Leah,
Aye.
Nate. I don't know if you're supposed to vote or not. I don't think it matters. So,
Thank you.
So go for it. Thank you, Nate, for stepping
So-
up.
Thank you for placing your trust in me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That leaves the vice chair position, which again, I am more than happy to support Nate, but also want to see if anybody else is interested in it at this time.
Yeah.
You know, Eric, I got to say your institutional knowledge means a lot.
Thanks.
And I think it'd help with the transition, so to speak, personally,
Perfect.
if you took that vice chair.
All right. Do you want to make a motion, Nate?
I'll make a motion for Eric for the vice chairman, finance committee.
Susie seconds.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to abstain for obvious reasons. Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
Leah,
Aye.
Nate.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay. So I think that kind of brings us into some of the additional committee discussion items we have continually carried from one meeting to the next. There's no pressing information, but I will go around the horn just to make sure that I didn't miss or forget anything. Tony, I'm just gonna start with you. Was there anything else that we were supposed to hit on tonight?
No, we've been putting off the results of operation. We can put them off again for FY20. I don't know that we covered it with this group.
I don't believe so, Tony.
But if you have something to share, we're here.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys are ready, I can pull something up.
All right, perfect.
I don't know what, if
I don't want
you,
to speak for everybody, but like if we keep putting it off, we'll be, it's like COVID, we're putting everything off.
No, I agree with that too, because I think as we look at October, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that second week or 2 weeks from now is a holiday week. So we're probably going to talk about our next meeting being 3 weeks from tonight anyway. So
Okay,
Appreciate it, Tony.
let me,
Doesn't have to be lengthy, but just something to,
tell you what, I'll give you my 15-minute version.
perfect.
Tony, do you need to share your screen?
Yeah, I'll need to share it, yes.
Okay, I'm going to make you the co-host.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ann.
So did this body get a copy of the free cash certification with the Department of Revenue? It should have been forwarded to this group.
Yeah, I think Lori sent it. I'm gonna try to look in my emails. She normally sends it to everybody. Thought either her or Josh had sent it, but I could be wrong too, Tony. Does anybody else remember seeing that?
I was just gonna say, I do not, but that's, it would come from Josh?
It would have come probably from Lori.
No.
I'm going to send it to you guys now. It gets automatically CC'd to everyone under the sun. And I believe the finance group is on that. So that's why I wanted to make sure before I started that you had that. So let me stop by just sharing that, okay? Since it looks like none of you have seen it. All right. Can you see the document?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll get into why we were able to get why we ended up at this number, but let's start at the end. So in essence, the DOR reviews our financial balance sheet and our analysis on our change in fund balance for the fiscal year and provide them with some other insights. And what we submit to them starts with their beginning calculation for the free cash, which is really an allowable amount of undesignated fund balance that we can use for appropriation. So the first thing they do is take that free cash number, or that undesignated fund balance number, excuse me, and they reduce it for the outstanding receivables that we have on the books. Then if we have some other funds where we haven't received revenue in yet, and we're running at a deficit, not a permanent deficit, but a deficit in that fund at the end of the fiscal year, they will offset our estimated free cash by that, those deficits. So this year was $138,000. They also give us a credit for a portion of the receivables that we have deferred. So it offsets the $1.2 million and the $666 there. And that gets offset by $484,000. Essentially, the difference there is any of our receivables where we have allowances for abatements and exemptions on the books. For those in the business world, if you were to get rid of the receivables and get rid of the adjustment here for deferred revenue, it's your bad debt estimate. Now, in the world of finance, municipal finance, there really isn't much of a bad debt for our real estate because it's a secured asset. Secured by, it can be liened and property can be foreclosed on. But the long and short of it, there was an adjustment to the tune of 1,237 and 138, and they added back 484,000, which arrived at our free cash of 2,205,366. very simple sheet. So there was good news there. That was more than we anticipated, and I'll get into why that happened. In the enterprise funds, we typically will have reserves, and this is the first one. Let me go back up here. This is our water fund at a surplus. In their reserves totaling $2,708,000. In the sewer fund at the end of the year, we had reserves totaling $1,712,000. What's good about both of those funds is we have some major $1 million projects, $16 million in water and a $34 million project in the sewer fund. So having those healthy reserves is going to help us defray some of the costs of those projects. I think one of the good things is because we generated more revenue than we thought in the golf fund. At the end of the year, they ended up with $110,000 in reserves. And as you know, there was a year-end transfer into the golf fund to ensure they ended up in a surplus. And I think it was 175, 200. So it was great to see that they held on to $110,000 of surplus at the end of the year when their expenses were closed out and their revenue was closed out.
Hey, Tony, before you move on there,
Yep.
110, does that go back or does that stay within, well, it goes to the general fund once we close it out anyway, right?
No, it will stay there. My recommendation is not to pay back the general fund that yet until we see what happens in the impact of COVID in FY 21. What I don't want us to have to do is to come back to the general fund, and this really helps with that.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
The same thing held true for the transfer station. We had a transfer in there. We anticipated a deficit. We weren't sure what the revenues were going to do. Whether they were going to hold up. And in essence, we ended up with $128,000 surplus there. That's a fund that we've had to subsidize over the last couple of years. So now both of those funds have some reserves, and that should allow us to, based on my early estimates, put us in pretty good standing for FY21. Any questions on those? Those is just the bottom line numbers. I'll stop sharing that and I'll share the meat and potatoes on the general fund. You know, where did this surplus come from? That's really, I think, an important piece. Okay. So I break down this free cash estimate that I do prior to it getting certified to do an analysis for you as to what really contributed to the surplus in the general fund. Okay. And you'll see as I go along, there'll be property tax, local receipts, state reimbursements, and there'll be some other appropriations. There'll be some other funding sources that I might refer to. And then they'll have a category of non-revenue sharing or revenue sharing. And that's just based on how we budget it each fiscal year. And I can explain that further if need be for clarification. So one of the things to note is on the property tax side, we actually had we collected less than what we had budgeted for. Now, the reason that doesn't negatively impact us like a local receipt, as I mentioned a few moments ago, is we have a claim or a hold that can be placed under the municipal finance laws. It's referred to tax title. We can lien the property. So if we didn't collect, we have recourse. The reason this number has ran in a deficit to budget, only deficit to budget, is we didn't have the collections in the tax liens. And we didn't have the collections in the sale of possessions. I think a year ago, our tax lien number was $700,000. Now, why have we seen a decline in that? Because we really worked very hard over the last few years to collect those old liens and take action using our tax title attorneys to collect anything that we could collect as soon as we collected it. So what we went after was those that we thought we had a high probability of recovering payment. And those are more difficult are now on the books. So the tax lien number has slowed down in collections, and it will continue because a lot of our tax receivables and our liens go back many, many years. Okay, so that actually hit our surplus by $308,000. Where we really saw a revenue surplus is in the local receipts. $1.4 million came from your local receipts. And of that, $1 million came from licenses and permits. I think I've mentioned a few times, over $300,000 of those licenses and permits are for properties that are part of our DIF, part of our new growth that can't be used for the general fund because it's going to pay down the debt for the Elm Street project. I don't mean to tag in so many peripheral issues, but in fact, it is connected. So it's great that we got $1 million surplus, but a large chunk of that won't convert into new growth in FY21 because we're going to use that new growth to pay down debt. The good news, we still had a surplus in the motor vehicle excise, but that reduced significantly from last year. In the state aid area, we mostly had a surplus in state-owned land. They do that late in the year. So before we even finalize our budget, excuse me, after we finalize our budget is when they come up with the final number for state-owned land. And that is, had a surplus of $29,000. And the other local receipts that are non-revenue, these are fees and rental income and some miscellaneous non-recurring income. There was a surplus of $400,000. The biggest number here that we've seen a huge jump in with our investments and our practice working with our financial advisor is in the investment income. That went up, I would say, around $70,000 from last year. Fees, although we had a surplus, these are the fees that offset costs related to providing certain services. Let's say firebox inspection fees that the fire department may generate for the inspections that they do. So those are the two categories that had a significant surplus. Miscellaneous is just that. We had no indication that any of that was going to find its way back to the town. I don't have my notes on exactly what made up that 86,000, but it was a number of non-expected revenue items. And then we had unencumbered, unexpended appropriations of $931,000, offset by some change in our balance sheet reserves. And I'm not going to get into how the fund balance can change from one year to the other based on our certain journal entries we do as they relate to liabilities, but it had a reduction of that. So appropriation and other accounted for $692,000. So our total $2,205,000, you can see $1,005,000 came from revenue, $693,000 came from unencumbered, unexpended for the most part. And that in a nutshell is why at the end of a fiscal year, we have been able to fund both the stabilization fund and the capital stabilization fund. Now, right now, we'll be putting an order in, and I anticipate replenishing the $1.6 million that we took out from the stabilization fund for FY21 and put it back into the stabilization fund. For all intent and purposes, everything that we are beginning to see, read, and be advised on is late 21-22 is when we're really going to start to see some of the impact of unemployment and some of the other economic indicators, meals tax, rooms tax. Building, however, is still going strong. So our licenses and permits, we still think are going to be high. We're seeing a decline in our motor vehicle excise. So for the first time, I'd like to move to another tab. Let me know, see if you see it, and then I will be done and answer any questions that you have. Can you read that? Just
Sure.
barely. How's that? Any better?
Yeah, I can see it
Yeah,
now.
that's good.
Good. Good. Okay. So a couple things I did with this particular reporting, and you guys got the whole report. So you've seen this in a PDF because I know I had Joss publish it. So the first thing we looked at is motor vehicle excise. Say, okay, how did we do per budget? Well, we collected 109% of the budget, right? Because I showed you on the other screen what that part of that attributed to our free cash. But if we look at where we are in total revenue in FY20 versus FY19, we're down $400,000. So that's close to 10%. So that's a leading economic indicator for us, that we're starting to see a slowdown in the commitments and a slowdown in the collections. And over here, we referred to our collection metrics on our commitments. So I think for those who've been on the committee for 3 years, when we had this windfall of $4 million, and the year before we had a windfall of $3.9 million or $3.8 million, it's because we had done our work to collect not only the current year's motor vehicle excise, but we had gone back and really worked in 15, 16, 17, and 18, collect past due excise tax. So we had a windfall of both a cash flow and a billing. So we had one of our higher billing years, plus we collected from past years, and that's why we had the windfall. Well, that's one of the reasons we're seeing the downtick is cash flow, because that is a cash-based system. You don't collect it, you don't get the benefit of it. Receivables don't mean anything when it comes to free cash for motor vehicle excise tax. So we're going to be watching this very, very closely and see what it does for the first quarter in FY21. Other meals, what was interesting is we did see a slight downtick, but because the COVID restrictions didn't go into sometime in March, there's a delay in the quarterly payments. So for instance, the first quarter in FY21 would be April, May, and June from the prior year. So the fourth quarter that we received, therefore, is January, February, and March. So we didn't get the April and March, April, April, May, and June until FY21, and we haven't seen that yet, so we don't know what's going to happen to our meals collections there. But as you can see, just in the fourth quarter with that 1 month, it affecting our receipts, it was down by 13,000. Same thing, we don't know exactly what's going to transpire here in the other room excise, but you can see in our fourth quarter, again, there's a delay. We were down $15,000. Penalties and interest on taxes. Interestingly enough, when we made the change to defer the due date for the collections on real and personal property tax bills, and we moved the due date for motor vehicle excise tax bills, we had a significant impact on our fourth quarter penalty and interest collections, because we essentially waived them. Now, what will happen during a down economy is our collections actually will increase in these areas, although some of it will be delayed. Eventually, you have a windfall where individuals who have difficulty paying will have to pay, especially motor vehicle excise tax, and in order to register their vehicles. So we then will see a switch in the other direction. So actually, penalties and interests are up in bad times, and they're down in typically good times. And that kind of makes sense here, right? We were down 83, we were down 28, we were down 25, and in the fourth quarter, we were down $92,000. This is a significant change. Licenses and permits is where we picked up. We're down. We were up $624,000 as compared to last year. So we're looking at where are we in relationship to budget, but also where are we in relationship to last year, and what are we seeing as a leading economic trend. And the only one we can see for the, I'd say, John Q. Public is motor vehicle excise and meals. When it comes to building, construction business is in such a really busy industry now, because home sales are just through the roof, and there's no inventory on the market. So that's really all I wanted to do, is cover that. The parting comment would be the reason we had such a large surplus in the area of unencumbered, unexpended appropriations was salaries. I think I alluded to the fact that the two major departments, fire and police, we budget based on full-time equivalents, meaning headcount. But there's a transient nature and some churn that goes on, because you have individuals that retire. We have new individuals that come on board. They may come on board later than the individual retired. So there's some recruiting issues and some actual placement issues. And I don't mean from there's a problem. It's just the nature of that beast. Finding the candidates, getting them enrolled in, let's say, the proper educational schools that they go to prior to coming on board with the police department or the fire department. And I say schools, I mean training. So there's a delay in that. But we always budget based on if they were fully staffed. And that gives us some room at the end of the fiscal year as it relates to the expense budget, salaries and expense. Any questions before I stop sharing this? Anything you want me to go back to?
No, but I'll just tell you that my husband told his car a couple of weeks ago, so we'll have a new car eventually. We'll make up a $400,000 deficit.
Could you do me a favor and lease it?
No, not that stupid.
Yeah, you make more money. You make more money on leased vehicles. All right. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Tony. I
Thank
think
you,
that was
Tony.
Good information. Absolutely.
Right. Welcome.
Does
He
anybody
didn't tell
have
that it was totaled. Someone hit us. Right.
Does anybody have any other questions for Tony? Great.
All right. Thank you.
Before we adjourn, next week is the 5th, and then I believe it's a holiday, right? I don't know for sure that the town closed on Columbus Day. I'm guessing they are.
That's correct.
So either we meet next week on the 5th, or we wait until the 19th. My suggestion is we wait till the 19th, but I don't know if that works for everybody else. So I'll pause and just see if that works for the rest of the group.
This is Kathy. Sorry, I joined late, but we have a GMES meeting on the 19th.
Okay.
When is the next council meeting? I should know this, but
I think Are they the first and the third? And you might know this. Are they the first and the third?
Most months they're the first and the third. This month they are October 6th, which is next Tuesday, and the second meeting will be October 20th.
Yeah, so they won't meet again until the 6th. So they won't have any business for us until at least the 6th, right? And then anything coming out of that, they'd want us to meet between the 6th and the
Right, that's why I was asking.
20th. Yep, no, that's a good question. But if we don't meet the 19th, it means we have to switch the night. Which I'm not against. I just, Tuesday nights no longer really work for me. It was easier when we were kind of all in quarantine. But I'm not around on Tuesday nights.
So-
And what was the 19th again?
There's a school meeting, and I think Kathy, was there one tonight as well?
It was, that's why I was late.
All right, so
Yeah.
that means we wouldn't have Josh either on the
So-
19th, right?
So the option, if we pushed it back to 7 again, I don't know if that works for people, then I have a better chance if we're not, like if we're voting over there, they start at 5:30. So typically we go longer than 7, but we have a better chance that I could join in case you need me for a quorum.
I'm fine with that. Does that work for everybody else?
Works for
Yeah, I'm good
me.
with it.
Mhm.
So let's set it for the 19th, and we'll set it for 7 o'clock as opposed to 6:30, and we'll make sure we have a quorum beforehand. Excellent. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion.
Motion by Nate. Do I have a second? Susie?
Second by Susie.
Thank you, Susie. Eric, aye. Julie?
Aye.
Susie?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
Leah?
Aye.
And Kathy.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
Thank you. Tony, thanks so much. Good to see you.
Thank you, Tony.
Nice to see you.
Thank
You're
you, Tony.
welcome. Bye now,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Night, guys.